Off to my right, I notice a truck smoke's coming off of his tires, cab's starting to wiggle. I didn't have any time to do anything other than jam on the brakes, close my eyes. I thought that at that speed, I probably would not survive that car accident. Hi, my name's Doug Anderson. I'm a grandfather, a father. I was a construction worker, a bouncer, and a bartender. I was a busy young guy. I'm 64 now, so I've slowed down some. Mostly I take care of my family. Family's number one important. I was traveling from Lake Havasu City, Arizona to about Newport, Oregon. It's a little town called Walport. It's on the Oregon coast. Sunday morning, June the 23rd, I left Havasu at about 8 o'clock in the morning and was headed through Las Vegas, north on 95, right in the center edge of the spaghetti bowl. I'm cruising about 60 miles an hour. Off to my right, I notice a truck smoke's coming off of his tires, cab's starting to wiggle. I know that he's making a quick brake. I shift down to fourth gear in my car to anticipate that maybe something's happening, to get some horsepower to drive around something if I have to. Instantly, I notice a Nissan Altima coming backwards across the lanes of travel, just like somebody blew a stop sign, but on the freeway. The Altima crashed into the center median and came to a complete stop about 40 feet ahead of me. As you can guess, I didn't have any time to do anything other than jam on the brakes, close my eyes. And when I did, I thought that at that speed, I probably would not survive that car accident. To my surprise, after the initial crash, I was still conscious, only to be hit from behind by the guy that was following me way too close. After that collision, I was still conscious. I came to the realization this wasn't going to be my day. The car came to a stop, and I felt I'd been in a car accident, a pretty serious one. I immediately called my wife, who panicked and gave the telephone to my daughter, who tried to get all the information and tried to get me calmed down so that the paramedics and the police could do their job and help me. After I was cut out of the car using the jaws of life, and the officer had to cut all of the airbags so they could even see me, every airbag in the car went off. They were able to get me out of the automobile, and as they were wheeling me away on a gurney, I was able to take some pictures. The picture shows exactly who I should call. I'm going to show you the picture here quickly because I have it on my phone. That photograph is what I took as they were wheeling me away from the gurney. If you look at the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you can see Eric Roy's billboard. Now, what are the chances of you coming to rest, facing traffic that you were going with just moments ago, right in front of an injury attorney's billboard? If that isn't a sign from God, I don't know what is. After taking the photograph, 3 days later, I noticed Eric Roy's billboard right there in the upper right-hand corner. And I thought to myself, someday you're going to be at the pearly gates, and if you make a bad decision here, somebody up there is going to say, dude, we literally sent you a sign and you didn't listen. Now, I did check Eric Roy out on the internet and found out that he is one of the top injury attorneys in Las Vegas. So I felt very comfortable contacting him. When I did contact Eric Roy, he was the most down-to-earth person I think that I've ever talked to that is an attorney. Eric Roy told me that don't worry about it. They would do everything they could to take care of me, and that they would do the best possible on my case, that nobody else would do better. A year and a half later, I would have to agree that Eric Roy did the best on my case. He got every penny that was available and was able to make me whole. The settlement will help me to pay for doctor bills, pay for ongoing treatments. In my accident, I was diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury, not at the hospital, strangely enough. Eric Roy's office, after discussing some incidences that happened, were the ones basically to diagnose me and send me to a neurosurgeon to make sure that what they thought was in fact the case, that I had a traumatic brain injury. I don't know many attorneys that would take that step. Attorneys that I've dealt with in the past, they're great, but they don't dig deep into your case. It's more superficial. I felt that Eric Roy dove deep into my case to get the full story and make sure that I got treated fairly through the insurance companies that we all know are just trying to save a buck. They're not really there for their customers. It's all about the bottom line for them. That's their job. I understand that. However, when you get injured in a car accident, every single dollar in your pocket counts, because that's treatment that you're going to need. Those are doctors that you're going to have to see that need to be paid. And there's other variables too to a car accident that, the money, it helps you pay for stuff that you never thought you'd have to pay for. Your car getting crashed. There's just so many things. About 3 or 4 months after my auto accident, Eric Roy was doing a promotion where he was meeting with his clients, taking his clients out to lunch for the afternoon. I was fortunate enough to be one of those clients. My wife and I met Eric. I can't remember the restaurant, but it was one of the trendier places down in Fremont. The meal was absolutely delicious, but the company was even better. I found Eric Roy to be pleasurable, down to earth, and honest. Nothing that I found out from then till now will ever change my opinion. Eric's one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. Eric came across like he really cared. The lunch that we had wasn't just a superficial discussion on our case. The lunch that we had with Eric, we got personal information that Eric probably doesn't share with everybody else. Finding out Eric Roy's past and that he settled on personal injury because he felt that he was wasting his law degree in the field he had chosen, that he really wanted to help people. And I felt that he was being honest about that. He seems to me like he's got the passion that this isn't just a way to make money. This is a way to give back to the community by helping people that have been injured through no fault of their own. This whole ordeal started in June 23rd of 2023. Yeah, that was the accident date. And I just recently just before this interview, went down to Mexico to my dentist that I've had down there for 15 years. My case manager was Stacy, and my actual attorney was Daniel Cantor. I spoke with Daniel several times. Daniel was awesome, friendly, nice, everything you want from, your injury attorney. Stacy really drove the case, to be honest. Stacy was in touch with me on a at least weekly basis. Stacy was the one that actually diagnosed my traumatic brain injury. I called her with some things that were happening that I was noticing: anger issues, forgetfulness, the ability not to be able to prepare for stuff, things that I had never experienced in the past. Stacy was the one that took it upon herself to get me to a neurologist, make sure that I was checked out, and make sure that they were taking care of the injury that I had that was giving me the most trouble, which, was my traumatic brain injury. The only other thing I had besides that was, bumps and bruises, the typical stuff that you have in a car accident. A little bit of neck pain, a little bit of back pain, and I busted up my bridge when I hit the airbag at 65 miles an hour. Stacy drove the case to make sure that not only did I get the payout I deserved, but I also got the treatment that I needed. Without the treatment that I needed, there was times when I was suicidal. I might not be here today had Stacy not taken the initiative to make sure that she got a hold of a neurologist that got me in right away and got me diagnosed quickly. The symptoms of a traumatic brain injury is I was having nauseousness that would come and go. I was having mental confusion at times, not being able to You know how you do a little project and the steps that you go through? Let's say you're painting a room, okay? You got to get out the brush, you got to get the paint. My organizational skills for that were highly diminished. I've been a carpenter since I was 16 years old. Since the car accident, I still have trouble organizing projects and getting them to go smoothly. Where before my car accident, they were like second nature because I'd been doing it my whole life. I didn't have to think about get the paint, get the brush. Now I have to seriously sit down and almost make a list to complete a project that 5 years ago I wouldn't have given two thoughts about. It would have just come naturally to me. I was also having fits of anger where little things would set me off, the same as something that happened in your life that was, super huge, something that you should get irritated about and be angry with. Unfortunately, I was having that same reaction to losing the cap for the toothpaste. Not really a good situation to be doing. Pretty much everything that I complained about from the car accident as far as an injury was addressed and taken care of by the law firm. My neck was bothering me after the car accident. They sent me to a chiropractor who, diagnosed that I had a slight whiplash. I also had my back was bothering me. Now, I had a car accident 23 years ago in which I did crush my back. I flew out of a car, landed 150 feet away in a grassy field. This isn't my first rodeo with the injury accident thing. Anyhow, they were able to get somebody to look at my back, make sure that the surgery that I had 20 plus years ago, basically my back looks like a hardware store if you took a picture of it. There's rods, there's pins, my L1 vertebrae was crushed, and they had to replace a third of it with a cadaver bone. The doctors at UMC, when I was brought in for my initial car accident, took one quick x-ray of it and said, oh, it looks fine. But they really didn't have anything to compare it to what it looks fine for. So I kind of was scratching my head that UMC even knew what they were talking about, because if you don't have a prior picture to compare it to, how do you know that one of those rods or one of those screws didn't get bent or broken? You don't. Stacy was able to get that taken care of to where we were able to not get prior pictures, but have an orthopedic surgeon look at it that knew what to look for. It was diagnosed that I did not, in fact, re-injure myself, that it was just bumps and bruises from the car accident. And since then, those bumps and bruises have gone away. But it was nice that the Eric Roy law firm took the time to validate my complaint and look into it to make sure that I was not, in fact, seriously injured. In the beginning, like most people, I thought that maybe I could negotiate it myself. After realizing that there was myself and 2 other cars involved with 3 insurance companies, there's no way that your average person can deal with that complexity. Especially with insurance companies, they don't really care if you get better. They care about the bottom line. They care about what their payout is. They care about what it's costing them. Doesn't matter how bad you got hurt. Eric Roy wasn't that way. Eric Roy did care that I got hurt, I felt. His team did care that they wanted to get me better, I felt. They came across completely sincere that, it wasn't really about the money. The money was important, but it was more important that they got me better. That's not the kind of service that you can just go out and get. Being that this isn't my first rodeo, I can tell you that my first car accident was handled horribly 20 years ago. My attorney at that point was, all I can say, incompetent. Dealing with Eric Roy and dealing with the attorney from the past, it's like night and day, the way I've been treated. These guys really care. My attorney in the past 25 years ago cared about making a buck. And I could tell. at the time. This is really the first recorded interview I've given on anything. And I'm not the type that just randomly endorses products or people. You've got to jump over a pretty high bar to impress me. Eric Roy's firm and Eric Roy personally have cleared that bar easily. I feel that I should endorse Eric Roy simply by the fact that he did such a great job on my case. And on a side note, Eric Roy, with all that he does for the community, for the animal shelters, the other things that he does First Friday with a dance-off. Not a lot of other attorney firms give their all to the community. They get their settlement, put their portion in the bank, and move on to the next customer. Very few give back to the community like Eric Roy does. I didn't know that when I signed up with Eric Roy, but finding it out later made me feel, all warm and fuzzy about my decision to hire Eric Roy to handle my case. It made me feel that the sign from God was probably, just that, a sign from God, to go with somebody that's helping the community, somebody that helped me tremendously, and somebody that, cares. My advice to you, as somebody that's been in a serious car accident, two, is you just want to get better. You don't want to be in pain anymore, and you don't want to have to think about all of the legal stuff that's going to happen or have to happen. As a non-legal expert, I don't know how to deal with insurance companies. I just know that they don't care about me and they want to make sure that they get the best settlement on their side that they can. It's a business. I understand that. Having somebody on your side that's trying to make sure that you get your fair share and that you're going to be made whole in the end, that you're not going to have a bunch of bills that you're going to have to pay for a car accident that you didn't cause. The last thing you want to do is be in a car accident, be seriously injured, and also have to go bankrupt. That's what happened in my first car accident. I had to file bankruptcy for an auto accident that was not my fault. That didn't happen this time. Financially, all of my bills were taken care of, and I ended up with a little bit of money for, future medical procedures that I may or may not have to have. If you're in a serious car accident, you're going to need legal representation. You're absolutely going to need legal representation. You can't do it alone. I would suggest that you have somebody that, cares about your case. Eric Roy has been night and day from my first experience from my car accident 25 years ago. After this car accident, before I contacted Eric Roy, I was terrified that I was going to face bankruptcy again. It's not a pleasant situation having to go through bankruptcy when you didn't make the mistake. I didn't make the mistake 25 years ago. I took a ride from somebody that drove like a crazy person and hit a guardrail and threw me out of the automobile. The aftermath of that car accident was worse than the car accident itself. The financial, I lost my house. My wife left at that time. Don't go through that. Don't hire a crappy attorney. Hire somebody that cares. Hire somebody that's going to do the best job possible. I suggest Eric Roy.